The Untold Truth about Indira Gandhi. She was one of the most powerful women in history, but her story is far more complex than most people realize. Born on November 19, 1917, Indira Priyadarshini was the only child of Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first prime minister. But her childhood was far from privileged. While her father fought for India's independence, Indira spent much of her early years watching her mother suffer from tuberculosis, eventually losing her when she was just 19 years old. This early trauma shaped her into the iron-willed leader she would later become. What many don't know is that Indira wasn't born a Gandhi. She married Feroz Gandhi, who had no relation to Mahatma Gandhi, in 1942 against her father's wishes. Their marriage was tumultuous, with Feroz often feeling overshadowed by the Nehru legacy. When her father became prime minister, Indira moved in with him as his hostess, essentially separating from her husband, who died in 1960. Her rise to power wasn't planned. After serving as information minister, she was chosen as prime minister in 1966 by party leaders who thought they could control her. They called her Gungi Gudia, a dumb doll, but they severely underestimated her political instincts. Within a few years, she split the Congress Party and emerged as the undisputed leader. One of her boldest moves came in 1971, when Pakistan was committing atrocities in East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. While the U.S. supported Pakistan, Indira signed a treaty with the Soviet Union and decisively intervened, helping create Bangladesh. This cemented her image as Durga, the goddess of power, and she won a landslide election victory. But power began to corrupt. By 1975, facing corruption charges that could have removed her from office, Indira declared a state of emergency, suspending civil liberties and jailing thousands of opposition leaders and critics. Her son, Sanjay, implemented a forced sterilization program that affected millions of poor Indians. This dark period lasted 21 months, with press censorship, constitutional amendments, and widespread human rights abuses. What's rarely discussed is her complex relationship with her sons. While Sanjay was her political heir, implementing her most controversial policies, her relationship with Rajiv was more distant. Rajiv wanted nothing to do with politics, working as a commercial pilot. But when Sanjay died in a plane crash in 1980, Indira pressured Rajiv to enter politics against his wishes. After losing power in 1977, Indira made a remarkable comeback in 1980. But the last years of her life were marked by violence and tragedy. When Sikh separatists took refuge in the Golden Temple, Sikhism's holiest site, she ordered Operation Blue Star, a military assault that killed hundreds and damaged the sacred site. This decision would cost her life. On October 31, 1984, her own Sikh bodyguards, Bant Singh and Satwant Singh, assassinated her in the garden of her residence. She was shot 30 times at point-blank range. What followed was even more horrific. Anti-Sikh riots erupted across India, killing thousands of innocent Sikhs while the government stood by. The contradictions in her legacy are striking. She nationalized banks and abolished royal privileges, helping the poor, while also undermining democratic institutions. She protected India's sovereignty against superpowers, but aligned closely with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. She was a champion for women's rights, yet ruled with an authoritarian hand. Perhaps most fascinating is how she balanced being a woman in power in a deeply patriarchal society. She once said, "You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist," yet she rarely compromised in politics. She was simultaneously India's most maternal figure, known as Mother India, and its most ruthless political operator. Her personal life remained lonely. After her husband's death, she never remarried, dedicating herself entirely to politics. Her relationship with her daughter-in-law Sonia was initially strained, though Sonia would later carry on the Gandhi political dynasty. Indira's legacy continues to divide India. Was she a visionary who strengthened India's position in the world, or a dictator who damaged its democratic foundations? The truth lies somewhere in between. What's undeniable is that she transformed India and showed that a woman could lead one of the world's largest nations with uncompromising strength. As she once said, You must learn to be still in the midst of activity and vibrantly alive in repose. It was this duality that made Indira Gandhi one of history's most fascinating and complex leaders.